It is a combination of the Stepford Wives and Get Out. This is the first time that Riley Sager publishes from the point of view of a man. Apparently it is a reimagination of Disney's Tangled. Again, just look at that cover. I cannot wait to hear more about Lady Macbeth herself. 2024 as a publishing year has been on fire. We get such good new releases, it's insane. And you know, considering that I love reading new releases, this is something that makes me very happy. And each season I come up with a new releases list that, you know, I think that you should definitely check out these books, and it's not gonna be different for the summer. So here is the speedy list, and that's important, a speedy list of 19 upcoming summer new releases that I think that you should definitely check out. But before we actually get to the list, hey, hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. My name is Zsuzsi, I am the petite reader, and I make weekly bookish videos. And if this is something that sounds good to you and you like any of my other videos, then I think that you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel. You are welcome here. Actually, YouTube analytics tells me that 80% of you who are watching my videos are not subscribed to my channel. And that really hurts my feelings. Why are you doing that to me? Okay, so the first book on my list for June is Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. This is coming out on June 11th, and this is a typical Ellie Hazelwood contemporary romance book, and we're back in STEM. We're back in STEM, but not in academic setting, but in industry setting, because this is about a startup biotech company and company takeover and a love situation there. So if you are a fan of Ellie Hazelwood, then put this book on your list. I don't know, I'm kind of like in the middle when it comes to her books, because there are books from her that I absolutely love, and then there are some other books that I just cannot stand. I don't know. I am personally thinking to take a little bit of, like, you know, a break when it comes to Ellie Hazelwood, but I just wanted to mention this book. And the next book is One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon, and this is also coming out on June 11th. And this is not a YA novel from her. This is a thriller. It sounds so good because according to the Goodreads description, it is a combination of the Stepford Wives and Get Out. Both of those movies are amazing, so I think that I will keep an eye on this book. The next book on my list is a horror movie by Paul Tremblay, and this is coming out on June 11th, and this is a horror book, and it kind of belongs to the cursed movie genre. There is another book on my list that is kind of like similar to this, and I feel that this whole like cursed Hollywood and horror Hollywood, this is kind of gonna be a theme for the summer. And the next book on my list is also a contemporary romance rom-comers by Catherine Center, and this is also coming out on June 11th. And I really like The Stranger from this author. I never read anything else from her. I never read The Bodyguard. I know that that was super famous. This one sounds really good because this is basically a romance between screenwriters, and this book takes place in Los Angeles. And the next book on my list, it is something that sounds so good, How to Age Disgracefully. I do not know this author, so I'm just hoping that I'm pronouncing her name correctly, by Claire Poley. And this is also something that's coming out on June 11th, and this is just a contemporary fiction book, but the description sounds so good because in this book, to save a senior citizen center from demolition, because the city council just wants to get rid of that building, the senior center and the daycare that is located right next to the senior center, somehow they unite to try to save the building. It sounds so good. I am here for it. And the next is a Riley Sager book that is coming out on June 18th, middle of the night. Now, it's a Riley Sager book, so it is a thriller. And the reason why this book is on my list, because if you've been around for a while, then you know that I've kind of given up on Riley Sager. Again, the same situation that I have with Ellie Hazelwood. There are books that I absolutely adore from him, and then there are books that I just simply cannot stand. So I was like, okay, again, I need a little bit of space when it comes to Riley Sager and his books, but I am putting this one on my list, though the premise doesn't really sound that interesting to me, because it's kind of like a kidnapping situation, and then 30 years later we go back to our hometown and then we investigate, what happened in the middle of that night. But this is the first time that Riley Sager publishes from the point of view of a man and not a woman. And that's one of the beef that I have sometimes with Riley Sager, that when it comes to his female characters, I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but there is no way that a woman in that situation would make that decision. It's just like, no. I am really interested to check out what he does when his main character is actually a man. And the next book on my list is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. That is also coming out on June 18th, and this is a thriller because it is a Lucy Foley book. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I never read anything by this author. I know that she is very celebrated when it comes to the book community, but I never really felt the need to read any of her books because the premise never really sounded interesting to me. But for this book, it actually sounds really good, because this book is about a manor that is basically a luxury hotel, but this luxury hotel and the grounds of the hotel, it has a very ugly past, and honestly, it sounds good. And the next book on my list is actually a literary fiction, Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi, and this is coming out on June 18th as well. The next book on my list is a horror, and I kind of cannot wait to read this one. This is How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey, and this is something that's coming out on June 18th. And I've only read one other book from Craig DeLuey, Episode 13, and while again, I'm not gonna lie, it was not exactly my favorite book of all times, you know what? There were chapters that really freaked me out, so I think I am going to give this one a try. And just to give you a little bit of context, like, this book takes place in the 80s, and we are following a horror movie director. He makes slasher movies, and he finds a camera that apparently in the past filmed a very real horror movie. The next book is a novel love story by Ashley Poston, and this is coming out on June 25th. And because this is an Ashley Poston book, like, we know that it is a romance book, but she tends to have these magical elements to her romance books, which I adore. I really like the Dead Romantics by this author. I have not read The 7-Year Slip, but it is on my TBR, on my never-ending TBR, and I am going to add this book to the list as well. First, it got me because of the cover, because we all know that I am a sucker for purple, so I need to read this book. But also, this book follows a bookish professor of literature who falls in love with a bookstore owner in a town that feels like that it's from a book, because it actually is. I mean, if you're a bookish person and you hear that premise, you're going to pick this book up. The next book on my list is Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren, and this is coming out on June 25th as well, and it is a contemporary romance, but apparently it is a reimagination of Disney's Tangled. And excuse me, but who doesn't like Tangled? It's impossible not to like that Disney movie. So this is something that's going on my list. And let's finish up June with a horror book that creeps me out. Just that cover creeps me out. And this is Incidents Around the House by Josh Mellerman. And this is coming out on June 25th. And apparently in this horror book, like again, just look at that cover. But apparently in this horror book, we will follow a little girl who is haunted by an entity called the Other Mummy. Oh, it's already like freaking me out. So for July, I only have 3 books, but honestly, every single one of them sounds so good. So the first book that I want to mention, oh my God, do I remember? The Seventh Veil of Salome? I'm not sure that I'm saying that correctly. And this book is by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and it's coming out on, let me check my notes, on July 16th. And now look, this is a historical fiction because she writes historical fiction, right? And I really liked Mexican Gothic from this author, but I didn't really like other books that I tried from her. But this is so interesting because it takes place in 1950, 50 something, so in the 50s, in Golden Age Hollywood. And if you know me, then you know that when a book takes place in Golden Age Hollywood, whether that's like, you know, fiction, historical fiction, or fantasy, I have to read it. And the next book on my list is Hera, or Hera. I want to say Hera because in Hungarian we say Hera, so I think it's Hera by Jennifer Saint, and this is coming out on July 23rd. And they keep changing the release date for this book. So as I am filming this video, it is coming out on July 23rd. And just like any other Jennifer Saint books, this is a feminist reimagination of the story of Hera, who helped her brother Zeus overthrow their father Kronos. Now Hera, being a character in Greek myth who is like, you know, deeply selfish and kind of like just a tool for the patriarchy, I really want to know how Jennifer Saint, you know, reimagines her story. I tend to like her books, so I am looking forward to this one. And the last book for July is The Wedding People, and this is coming out on July 30th. And according to Goodreads, it is a romance book. I don't think so, because when you read that description, like, I don't think so. Maybe it's like a general fiction book, but I don't know. All I can tell you is what Goodreads tells me. And I put this book on my list because it takes place in Newport, Rhode Island in the summer. And this summer I am traveling to Newport, Rhode Island, so it has to be on my list. Okay, August. And August starts out amazing because on August 6th, the newest T. Kingfisher release comes out, A Sorceress Comes to Call. And this is a horror fantasy that reimagines the Grimm's brothers' Goose Girl. And if it is anything like Thornhedge, that I absolutely adored, which is kind of like a dark fantasy, horror fantasy reimagination of the Sleeping Beauty, then I am here for it. I cannot wait for this book. And I also cannot wait for the next book, Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed, and this is coming out on August 13th. And this book, as the title suggests, is gonna be about Lady Macbeth. And since Lady Macbeth is one of the most famous Shakespearean villain, I have to know her story. And also, Macbeth is probably my favorite Shakespearean play. I really love it. I love everything about that play, and I cannot wait to hear more about Lady Macbeth herself. And as long as we are talking about Shakespeare, there is another book coming out, Marriage and Masti by Nisha Sharma, and this is coming out on August 27th. Now, this is the third and final installment in a contemporary romance series that I didn't know existed, because I loved Dating Dr. Deal. I was like, wait, what was that? For a second, I was like, wait, what was the title of the book? Dating Dr. Deal. I absolutely adored that book, and I want to read more from this author. And again, I just didn't know that this series existed, and this is a modern day Shakespearean reimagination of the 12th Night. Say less, say less. I need this book on my list. And the last book on my list is a Matt Haig book, The Life Impossible, and this is coming out on August 29th. And I like his books so far, everything that I read from him, like The Humans, I adore that book. I also really like The Midnight Library, and I kind of think I'm going to like this book as well, because this book is about hope and the power of new beginnings. Like, if you've read anything by Matt Haig, then you know that because he is somebody who struggles with mental health, his books usually have such deep meaning to them. So I am definitely reading this one. Well, this is it, guys. This is the end of the video. If you are still here, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Now, let me know in the comments below if you found a book or 2 books or maybe 19 books on this list that tickled your fancy. And definitely let me know if you think that I forgot one, because I like to know about new releases, okay? I really like to read them. Now, hit share, like, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. If you want to check out any of my other videos, I will leave them on the screen, probably here and here. And I see you soon in an upcoming video. Bye!